Hi everyone, welcome to Simple But Not Obvious, where today's topic is gambling odds and understanding what exactly it means in popular casino games like craps or roulette when you hear things like 2 to 1 or 3 to 2, or other places you might bet like in sports or horse racing. Let's take a look.
I'll take the full odds on the 10, 200 on the hard way. The limit on all the numbers, 250 on the 11. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's understand a little bit about what Mr. Bond was talking about there. When it comes to gambling odds, whether you're talking about table games in a casino like craps or roulette, things like horse racing, or other sports betting. Some of you may have joined some of these online betting platforms that are becoming more popular. When we talk about odds, we're talking about the return and risk associated with a wager. Now, when you read odds, they're represented in this format, and we read them as 2 to 1. They're expressed as a ratio, but the actual return is just the equivalent fraction. So basically, when you read 2 to 1, just read this as a fraction, 2 divided by 1, which is 2. So your return or return multiplier you can think of is 2. And percentage, which may be more familiar to people, you just multiply by that number by 100. So this is a 200% return when you see 2 to 1. So for example, for a $100 bet, the return is just your multiplier 2 times your bet, which is $200. So a $100 bet on a 2 to 1 odds will get you $200. Now it's important to remember the third bullet here. The higher the return, the higher the risk, and then the less chance of winning. So that's what this is explaining here. So as your return and risk go one direction up, your chance of winning goes down. And such is life, right? Now let's move on to the games. First of all, with roulette, which is popular, there's a variety of ways to place bets in roulette. We're just going to focus on two of the more simpler ones. First one is red and black. The odds of a red or black bet is 1 to 1. The return is just our fraction. 1 divided by 1 equals 1. And our return percent is just that number times 100. So this is a 100% return. So a $100 bet will give us $100. Now in comparison, if you wanted to go with a little higher odds, 2 to 1, you would pick one of these groups of 12, right? And these, as you see here on the right, are 2 to 1 odds, because the chance of winning here is a little bit lower. Instead of picking one out of two possibilities, you're picking one out of three possibilities, right? So your chances of winning go down. Your return goes up 2 to 1. The return is 2 divided by 1, which is 2, 200% return. And again, for a $100 bet, we just use our multiplier 2 times 100 to give us $200. Now moving on to horse racing, it's the same idea. Horse number 1 in this case has 5 to 2 odds, and it may not be clear when you first glance at the board, but we can do the math here again. Return is 5 over 2 equals 2.5. So the return for this horse is 250%. $100 bet would give you $250. We're just multiplying by 2.5, our multiplier. And for horse number 8, the odds are a little higher here when we do the math. 7 over 2 is 3.5. So this horse will return 350%. And on our original $100 bet, that's $350. So when we say relative risk, right, what we mean is this horse has a relatively higher risk than this horse, and the return is higher, but the chance of this horse winning is lower. So you'll notice in horse racing, when they talk about favorites, they're often the ones with the lowest odds. Now it's interesting to compare this to what you might see in your traditional savings account. Most of you know the best you can do in your savings account in the country right now is about 1%, but this is even an annual number. Now if we look at this in gambling terms, this would be an odds of 1 to 100. So very low odds and very low return. So 1 divided by 100, this is our fraction, is 0.01, right, compared to these 2.5 and 3.5 numbers we've seen previously. So our annual return again is 1%. That's our 0.01 times 100. That's our annual return. And then our $100 bet, which is really our investment, right, would get us 0.01 times 100, $1. And this is for an entire year for this $100 bet. In contrast with our $100 bet in these other games where we made $250 or $350 in a matter of minutes. So you can see in comparison, the relative risk in gambling is very much higher than using a traditional savings account. And so you should always be wary of these games and use them only for entertainment purposes, not expect to win regularly or to use them for regular income. And that is the essence of gambling odds. Simple enough, right?